There are difficult times ahead. Our stable climate is beginning to warm, a departure from what we consider the norm. But are we just being misled? Should the trends give us reason to fear? Weather is short-term, tomorrow, next week. Climate is long-term. The data look bleak. Have changes already clicked into gear? Here in the UK, we'll have to adapt. We are not immune to the greenhouse effect. Carbon emissions have gone on unchecked. Gases are held in and trapped. There is talk of change by degrees. Temperatures rising from 1 up to 6. How should we respond? Is there a quick fix? Will the UK be brought to its knees?
Yeah, I'm worried about climate change, and I think we all should be.
Climate change is not a myth, it's happening, it's all over the news, people are talking about it every day.
If we let climate continue to warm, then we are going to see some significant impacts on the UK.
Let's take your average farmer who ploughs and sows a field. A subtle shift of 1 degree could mean a rising yield. With a longer growing season and winters mild and wet, the future and the sky look bright. Nothing to worry about yet. But lurking at the back of the mind is a constant nagging doubt. We'll need more irrigation to deal with summer drought. We'll need to harvest different crops, baked beans and sugar beet. New breeds of insect are a pest, attracted by the heat.
With the gentle warming of our seas, new species slowly arrive, replacing the native varieties that are ill-equipped to survive. Nature tourism could flourish, with visitors eager to view dolphins, whales and sunfish, now local, not passing through.
On their surface, there's no need to panic at the temperature's gradual climb. It's simply about adaptation, taking 1 degree at a time.
So there's a possibility that we may be able to manage climate change by doing different things, growing different crops, but I'm conscious here that it would be very difficult to farm with less rain.
There's no need to panic at 1 degree, but there is a need to be concerned that 1 degree is not the end of the temperature rise. We're going to see more rise in temperature.
Already we've got a slight warming of the seas over the last sort of 10, 15 years, and we're noticing anchovies which generally weren't native here, sea bass being caught further up the coast.
I can remember some very severe summer droughts, such as 1976 and 2004, and if I get that every other year rather than every 20 years, it will have a huge impact on my farming and my ability to grow food.
But a doubling up to 2 degrees is a troubling proposition. Is this our best case scenario, our probable default position?
We'll soon be feeling the pressure as cyclones bring strong gusts and gales, a towering problem to overcome across England and Wales.
But don't be depressed by the storms. In the west, taller waves would be swell. Surfing the crest will be best in high winds, perhaps twice as good, who can tell?
Underground, the problems are brewing. Convectional rain falls to the earth.
With a thunderous roar and an ear-splitting sound, the sewers burst forth.
Insurance costs rise in defence. Our claims accumulate and grow. If your postcode is risk at flooding, premiums soar or insurers say no.
Waist high in water, knee high in waste. The thought of it isn't nice. And no one brings their surfboards now to a former surfer's paradise. 2 degrees warmer, you've got to think about the sort of increased rainfall and lots of different consequences of CSOs discharging more frequently and low tide reef breaks disappearing. There's a lot to take on there.
Even a 2 degree change in climate will mean hotter, drier summers, but it'll also mean wetter, warmer winters, which will bring more rain, more flooding. The sewers and drains won't be able to cope so much, the rivers won't be able to cope so much, so the flood events will be happening more often.
You get the degrees of temperature, but with temperature comes the other elements. So wind gets stronger, which then puts a lot of risk of people on site, stops me doing my job on a day-to-day basis. And that's just one of the fundamental issues of climate change.
2 degrees is very much our best case scenario, and I probably think that 2 degrees is, from where we are now, is likely to be unachievable and more likely to be 3 degrees. Brighter skies but a darker mood with a rise of 3 degrees. The heat is soaking into your skin. Are you feeling ill at ease?
Oh, for a nice summer breeze. As the Med begins feeling the pain, and tourists prefer the Costa del Felix, though, to the blistering beaches of Spain.
But engulfed by waves of heat, Britain too may fry, simmer and boil.
Cast your mind back to 2003, when Europe was in turmoil.
No place to hide for the old and infirm. When summer's a season of fear, hypothermia used to be rare. Now it happens every year.
Air conditioning is a must to stop us combusting. Will energy capacity need to expand? How can we be more efficient? Can we meet the growing demand?
So power flows from the rays of the sun and the wind and the waves and the tide.
But have we left it all too late? Is life too hot to abide?
At 3 degrees, we probably should feel ill at ease. I think by the time we reach 3 degrees, we might expect to see more of those impacts in the UK.
In 2003, I mean, we had 40 degrees. My car thermometer kept telling me it was 40 degrees. I would hate for it to be much hotter than that. I enjoy the sun, but when you work and you do the job I do, then a 40-degree day causes us a lot of problems.
Or when it gets that hot, we will get a lot of people actually going out on the hill. They want to enjoy the heat, but they will forget what heat can do to the body.
It's particularly in the south of the UK, where we take a lot of water from groundwater. If we don't have the rainfall to recharge that groundwater, we could begin to see water shortages.
Well, personally, I'm a sun lover. I love being at sea. 2 or 3 degrees, fantastic. Could it be like Spain in the middle of our summer? Roll on, as far as I'm concerned. I'd love that. But where do we then cut off?
With 4 degrees, we won't just go with the flow.
For the slow, sluggish UK rivers will be a sliver and a shadow of their former course.
All power evaporates as they dry up, all force drained away.
A sorry state, from mouth right back to source.
Water is now a precious commodity.
People must think how they use it.
Our reserves reduce as each day elapses.
We must not abuse it.
A warming world, melting poles, sea levels rising relentlessly. Has the climate reached its tipping point? Is this how the future will be?
The low-lying coastlines are drowned.
A surge in properties lost.
If the land is reclaimed by the sea, what will be the hidden cost?
I would hope that we've managed to stabilise climate before we reach a warming of 4 degrees. If we do get to 4 degrees, then the impacts of that are likely to be quite significant in the UK.
The landscape, if it's 4 degrees, you won't see the rivers. You'll see dams dried up. You won't get the different changes of colour of the environment, which we do see. I mean, what's beautiful about Wales is the brown and the greens. And what we see is a more Australian type of outback.
The way we cool our buildings, how we live and play outside will be very different in those kind of temperatures. And the way we use water is likely to be changing as well, in that we have to conserve what's becoming increasingly scarcer water supplies.
It's easy to forget how short we are of water when we're experiencing lots of floods. People think, well, there's plenty of water, but there's not. We're already We're already suffering a shortage of water, drinking water for an ever-expanding population. In the future, there'll be even more demand on it.
If sea levels rise more than a metre, then it's inevitable that my farm will flood, and that will be the end of it. It will be under the North Sea, and there it will remain.
No high fives of celebration.
Instead, 5 degrees of commiseration.
As roasting residents of sizzling states seek refuge through mass migration.
In a hurry, these travellers quickly move on. The UK is too hot to stop. The newly green poles are their ultimate goals in their search for one precious raindrop.
In cities, pollution will cloud our lives, draped in grime and heat.
These urban ovens will be uninhabitable. People will head for the hills in retreat.
It certainly isn't a reason to celebrate. At 5 degrees, the world is going to see some significant impacts.
I think because of the way we talk about and have a fixation about the weather and how awful it generally is, for people to actually be coming to us because of the weather and not tourism because of the Queen or things to go and visit, I think will seem very strange.
There will be parts of the world that people aren't able to live in because principally of water scarcity. So talking about searching for that precious raindrop is spot on, really.
Yeah, ice cap's going to melt away, so there's going to be no cold air, so everything's just going to boil away.
Boiling Point, Britain, scorched, torched and bleak. 6 degrees hotter and still rising higher. This once was a green and pleasant land, but now it's a country on fire.
I don't think it's all doom and gloom. It is a difficult, really challenging problem that leads lots of us across the world to work together, but it has solutions and we're able to solve it. So I'm optimistic that we will rise to the challenge.
I think climate change might not be reversible, but we can slow it down. But we need to take it very, very seriously if we're going to do that. We all need to be aware of our impact on the environment.
It's definitely happening, and I don't think it's too late to try and reduce the impact of climate change.
The weather is part of the charm of farming, and I suspect it always will be, but it will continue to challenge farmers and they will have to rise to that challenge.
I think it's everyone's responsibility. It's not just a question of business or government, it's us as well. At the end of the day, the only reason that we transport energy through the system is because people are using energy at the end of the system. If you don't need to use it, don't.
Climate change is here now to stay, so we need to learn to adapt and move with it.
Who knows how the planet will cope? Are we happy to leave it to fate? Or will we act now before it's too late, with courage and vision and hope?